Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillahi wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yawmiddini. Amma ba'du. Brothers and sisters, welcome to Lesson 5, Module 2 of Learn Tajweed for Allah. Today, inshallah, we are going to continue with Makhraj al-Huruf, the places from which letters originate. And the point that we're going to be dealing with, or the aspect we're going to be dealing with, is Hafatul Lisan, which is the side of the tongue. The sides of the tongue. Of the 32 teeth in the mouth, 28 is used in the pronunciation of Daad and Lam. Thus it is necessary to review the names of the teeth in the mouth before discussing these letters, inshallah. Al-Thanaya, which is the incisors. There are 4 of them. Al-Raba'iyat, they are also called incisors. There are 4 of those. Al-Anyabu, the canine teeth. There are 4 of those also. Al-Dawahik, the premolars. The premolars. There are 4 of those also. Al-Tawahin, the molars. There are 12 of those. And Al-Nawajid, the wisdom teeth. We should pay attention to them because we are going to study them, inshallah, relative to the Daad and the Lam. We continue with the sides of the tongue. 2 letters are pronounced using the sides of the tongue, Daad and Lam. So our concern is to understand the aspects of the side of the tongue before we discuss the letters that originate from them. Inshallah, there are 2 major aspects to the side of the tongue. One is the deepest part to the middle. And from there, Daad is pronounced. And 2, from the middle to the tip. From the middle to the tip. Lam is pronounced using this area. Continuing with the sides of the tongue, we have the palate, the upper palate. Right? Now, why we're bringing this is because there's connection with the tongue and the palate in pronouncing these 2 letters, inshallah. Let us look at the yellow and blue squares in the picture. All of them represent the position of the connections relative to the side of the tongue. The tongue connects to these positions. The sides of the tongue connects to these teeth, inshallah. Okay? However, for the yellow area, the tongue connects without pressure. And this is important to note. The tongue connects without pressure. The blue square represents the touching of the tongue with pressure, and it's resting in that position, staying for a while in that position. Okay? So, if in the pronunciation of Daad we put pressure on the yellow area, then what would result is an elevated Dal, which is not found in Arabic. There is no elevated Dal in Arabic. Dal is a flat letter. The elevated letter is Daad. The Daad is an elevated letter, inshallah. So the squares in the picture of the Hanaq al-A'la is really a representation of where the tongue would be when the Daad is pronounced, inshallah, and the pressure areas and where pressure should not be applied. The Makhraj of Daad. The letter Daad uses the latter 2/3 of the side or edge of the tongue. We are going to show this, inshallah, in some detail just now. The Daad is pronounced from one or both sides of the tongue. And so the tongue and from the upper molars and the gum area next to the molars. And this is represented by the colors, the blue squares in the picture. This is in the upper molars. That is where the tongue, the side of the tongue touches. Okay? The latter 2/3 of the side of the tongue, the edges of the tongue touches there, inshallah. If you look into the other picture, which is going to point out where the tongue is in connection with the upper palate, inshallah, it makes it clear. The third thing is that this letter can be pronounced from either side, right or left of the tongue, or from both sides of it simultaneously. That's both the right and the left simultaneously. So there are 3 ways in which this letter can be pronounced. Pronouncing it from the left side is easier and more common than using the right side. The Prophet ﷺ pronounced this letter from both sides of the tongue simultaneously, right, together. Inshallah. Here we are going to learn the range of the tongue that Daad works with from the side of the tongue. Right, the range from the side of the tongue that Daad works with in order to pronounce, in order to contact with the molars to pronounce the Daad. We have the closest part of the side, which we discussed before, and the farthest part of the side. This is a picture of the tongue highlighting the two parts of the side of the tongue. Note, two parts of the side of the tongue, right? The part in the green area and the part in the yellow area. Okay, the part in the green area is a letter of pressure and rest. The part in the yellow area, is the point of touching, right? The part in the green area is a point of pressure and rest. Now, this first picture on the right hand side is a picture of the tongue highlighting the two parts of the sides of the tongue. Note the two colors used are going to touch those parts of the upper palate with the same color as is represented by the picture on the left. The picture on the left is a picture of the upper palate that highlights the two parts the side of the tongue touches. Okay, this is what is basically it. So if you sit and you really observe this picture, you can get a clear understanding of how the tongue is in relation to the upper palate when the Daad is pronounced. Okay, you should go it over if you don't understand. And we're going to explain it in the week class. The sides of the tongue in relation to the Daad. This picture is a moving pronunciation of Daad. So look at the front of the tongue, how it is under the pressurized air that is emerging from the air pathways. It pushes the front of the tongue forward until its tip connects with the point where flesh reaches with the teeth, that is the gum and the teeth. And the quantity of air captured behind the tongue increases. Follow the arrow and you will see the air increasing behind the tongue. This is why the Daad is called mustatilah. And we're going to describe this in the sifat of the huruf of Daad, because it is the only letter in the Arabic alphabet that has istitalah. Because the air in its sound extends more than it was when he began to pronounce it, or when one began to pronounce it. This is one of the unique attributes of this letter. This letter has a characteristic of compression of the sound, as well as tafkhim, that is heaviness. So the deep part of the tongue raises up when pronounces it and compresses the sound at the same time. The deep part of the tongue, the back part of the tongue, raises up, so it narrows the pathway of the sound coming out of the throat, right? And at the same time, it compresses the sound, as we are seeing in the picture on the right. Okay, we are still with the sides of the tongue as it relates to Daad. The range of the tongue that the Daad works with from the side of the tongue when it is pronounced with a fatha or a kasra, when the Daad has a fatha or a kasra or a dhamma. The two pictures manifest the part of the tongue striking the upper palate. These two pictures, we put them together. It is a picture of the Daad, of the tongue striking the upper palate in pronouncing Daad, and how the sound emanates, not in front, but towards the side, as we are going to explain. And we are seeing in the picture as it is moving. Pay attention to how the sound is distributed left and right, as exemplified by the black arrows. Note, it does not come out from the direction of the front of the mouth. The sound does not come out from the direction of the front of the mouth. That is the yellow colored portion, but spreads apart right and left and leaves from the area that is colored green.
ض لو كانت يمنة ويسرى هكذا ض ض ض لو كانت متحركة بالضم ضو 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 لو كانت متحركة بالكسر ضي ضي ضي.
We are now going to do some common mistakes concerning the letter Daad. The Daad takes practice, patience, and dua to perfect its articulation. And you need to do a lot of this. You need a lot of practice, you need a lot of patience. Not you, we, inshallah. The most common mistake in its pronunciation is using the tip of the tongue instead of the side. That is the posterior 1/3. The resultant sound then is that of a dal. People use the posterior 1/3 of the tongue, and so what results is the sound of a dal. Using the middle of the tongue is another mistake that people make, and what is opposite to it of the middle of the roof of the mouth is another common error. The resultant sound is a sort of like a heavy dal. Some people pronounce this letter using the tip of the tongue and the teeth. Another less common mistake is going back too far to articulate it, back to the truth. These are mistakes in Daad, inshallah, that we must pay attention to, so we don't get it being pronounced like a dal. This is something that is dangerous because it is called lahm. The other letter that we are going to be dealing with is Lam. Lam, and it emanates from the sides. The letter Lam uses the front 1/3 portion of the side of the tongue closest to the mouth, indicated by the blue squares. This letter is articulated from the forward 1/3 of the sides of the tongue. The forward 1/3 of the sides of the tongue, right? To the sides at the tip. So it's from the forward one side, it is the portion that the Daad did not use, up to the tip. And what lies opposite to them of the gum of the two top front incisors, the two top lateral incisors, the back incisors, the two top canines, and the two top premolars. 8 teeth in all. So the tongue from the side to the tip goes up towards there, inshallah, and the lam is pronounced from there. The articulation of this letter is then in the shape of an arc, with both sides until the tongue ends at the tip, meeting up with the gum of all the mentioned teeth. Right? All 4 sets of teeth, inshallah. It is to be noted that it is a fine line. It is a fine line of the sides of the tongue that meets up with the gum, and it does not include the top of the tongue. The articulation of the lam is an upward movement, not a forward movement like L in the English. Let us look closer to this on the next page. Here we have the Makhraj of Lam. Okay? The Makhraj of Lam is from the closest part of the side to the end of the side at the tip of the tongue. Okay? This is a picture of the tongue highlighting the part of the side of the tongue. Note the color. Use indicates that part of the tongue that is going to connect with the part of the upper palate, which is the picture on the left. This picture of the upper palate highlights which part is touched by the side of the tongue. Okay, so this is the yellow area alone. So the top yellow area, which is the closest part of the side to the end of the side, which is at the tip of the tongue, right, on both sides, touches those those parts that connects with the gum of those 8 teeth in the front, inshallah. This is the lam. How it's pronounced is a picture of the tongue as it touches the palate while pronouncing the lam, inshallah. So let us consider some of the common mistakes in this letter. The most common mistake is that of using just the tip and not the sides of the tongue to pronounce this letter. And the resultant sum is a mixture of lam with traces of noon, since the noon is articulated very close to the lam. Another mistake for native English speakers is pronouncing lam using the underside of the tongue and the actual plates of the 2 front teeth. The actual plates of the 2 front teeth, inshallah. And as we said, they also make the mistake of pronouncing it like an L in English, right? The L in English uses the tip of the tongue. There's one other area that in relation to the lam is the elevated and the flat lam. Lam can be elevated or it can be flat, like Allahu and Bismillahi. The elevated lam is accompanied by the sinking of the middle of the tongue and a narrowing of it in the throat, the narrowing of the back of the tongue in the throat, right? So the passageway becomes smaller. Okay, so it sinks in the middle. That's for the elevated lam. As for the flat lam, right? As for the elevated lam, it sinks in the middle, and the tongue, the back of the tongue, narrows in the pathway of the throat. As for the flat lam, the middle of the tongue is flattened, and the back of the tongue is more relaxed, so it does not narrow the passage of the throat. For example, if we say Allahu, the tongue is as is in the elevated lam. And lillahi, it is more flat, and you can actually feel it, inshallah. So, alhamdulillah, we praise Allah for allowing us to complete lesson 5 of module 2. This is the final lesson of the week, inshallah, before we get into our live session, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to cover all our sessions and to do it properly, so that when we come to the live sessions, we will be able to interact and benefit in the most complete way. May Allah help us and guide us and strengthen us. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik, shalla la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.